So tell me a little bit about the trends today, both on the residential side and on the commercial side. What is the market like today?
The market, the market sets itself, child. Every day is something different, but we are currently in a seller's market still. Um, Properties are moving. I mean, prices are up. I know that everyone's complaining, especially real Atlantans, people who have been here. The numbers are higher than they've ever been before.
Hey, friends, welcome to 1 Minute with Monet, a podcast where we help busy adults live life with balance and harmony 1 minute at a time. I'm your host, Monet, owner of Time Managed LLC, a full service concierge and personal assistant business in Atlanta, Georgia. Visit our website, timemanagedllc.com, for more information about our services. Every week, I'll share tips for how you can manage your lifestyle and tackle your to do list efficiently. Hey, friends, welcome to another edition of 1 Minute with Monet. I'm here today with my friend Arneé Harrison, and we're going to talk all things real estate. Now, it is springtime, so you might be thinking about moving. You may have been saving up for a home, and now's your time to start looking so you can make that transition by the end of the summer.
I like that timeline.
I'm very ambitious.
Yes, I love it. Listen, put it out there, make it plain.
Thank you for being here.
No, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so excited about your podcast and your new venture. So thank you for the invitation. I'm excited.
Of course, of course. We've been friends for a couple years now. I followed your career and all the success that you've had with your real estate business. Tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got started.
Well, you want the long version or the short version?
Yeah.
So first, this is my favorite topic. So I'm not going to keep you guys all night because I could just go on and on. But I've been in real estate for a little over 20, well, coming up on 23 years this July. Been a broker for, don't ask. I cannot keep up with years. Like my memory has been lost, but definitely been licensed and working here in Georgia. I also hold licenses in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida. I'm all things real estate, real estate for real people, real estate. So not the new buzzy real estate that we've gotten from the internet and I know people hear so many stories, especially because it has become such a buzzword, but I really am all about the work of promoting ownership and using it as a tool. So that is what I've built my business around. Much of my business is referral. So, word of mouth, people who are pleased with the work that we've been able to do together and spreading the word. So I pride myself on that as well.
Amazing. Thank you. And congratulations on many years of success. Flies by when you're having fun.
Time flies by, fun or not. There have been peaks and there have been valleys. I do specialize in residential real estate, but I also work in small business commercial as well, especially here in Atlanta. Best place to start a business. So I do a lot of commercial as well.
Okay, awesome. So tell me a little bit about the trends today, both on the residential side and on the commercial side. What is the market like today?
The market sets itself, child. Every day is something different, but we are currently in a seller's market still. Properties are moving. I mean, prices are up. I know that everyone's complaining, especially real Atlantans, people who have been here. The numbers are higher than they've ever been before. It seems like the dream of home ownership is getting further and further away, but only for those who have not prepared and, are not in the process of building. And so we want to change that narrative. But the average home sales price in Atlanta right now is $517,000, if you can believe it.
Wow.
And interest rates are mid sixes, so between 6.5, 6.99 for a well qualified buyer. So those traditionally are very high numbers for the city, or for metropolitan Atlanta, I should say. And all across the country, not exclusive to Atlanta. Those numbers are specific to Atlanta, but prices are up everywhere. Interest rates, I was hoping, like, the one way that your president could redeem himself with me is by driving those interest rates down. So does not look like that's happening, which is very disappointing. But at some point, there is definitely going to be some change where that trends. If I knew, I would probably have us on a couch in Italy doing this podcast because I'd be rich. Right. If I could predict where we were going and when we were going to get there. But hopefully we'll get better because that, never know prices to go down when people are spending money, but we'll see. Economics does trend in a certain way, and it is cyclical. And at some point, there definitely will be a change. So let's just anticipate and be ready. And preparedness is half the key.
Definitely be the key. So people are still buying homes. You said the market is still a seller's market.
Still buying homes, so
No, it's the market.
even though, and that's the thing,
Interest rates are high.
interest rates are high, money's high, but I will say, it used to be so rare to see like $1 million home in Atlanta like that. You can get a mansion here for 300,000,
Exactly.
500,000 at one time. Now, some commensurate prices when you look and you're like, oh, when you think about what's a $400,000 home or $500,000 home, it looks very different from what people anticipate seeing with those numbers. And so a lot of those numbers have gotten up into the millions. So it's nothing to see 1.2, 180,000, 1.6. Now we're in multi-millions, but people are buying.
Interesting.
People are closing on those homes. So it's hard to say, I'm not doing it. But yeah, I mean, we still have fair, I would say low inventory. Inventory is recovered a little bit, but we're still right at almost like a 6-month supply of homes. So that's not horrible. Like it's almost at a stabilization point.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell me a little bit about the business side or the investment side of real estate. Is the market the same for investors?
So now those margins have shrank because, of course, it still costs more to get into an investment point. And then the gap between what you would have to pay for an investment property is much higher. Prices are high all across the board, depending on how you enter the market. There are some people who do like loan assumptions, and, depending on how you acquire the property is the biggest thing. But all around, prices are up, and, it's not as easy to flip a house as it used to be. You probably could, many years ago, buy something. You could have bought something for 15,000, 20,000 at some point, put maybe 20 or 30 grand into it and sold it for $100,000. People are used to numbers like that or even bigger margins, but we're kind of out of that phase on a large scale. More savvy investors who really know what they're doing and have excellent teams that can kind of get in and out, get materials cheap. That's another thing. There are no cheap materials unless, you're buying in bulk. You're a builder, you have great big budgets and things of that nature. So the investors that we see making moves right now are large corporations. They're not really individuals.
Okay.
Yeah. So and different for everywhere. I'm making blanket statements because, of course, you got one-offs here and there, but as a whole and in general, that day is at a standstill.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody's grumbling.
Well, we'll get back to more of the investing side. So I want to talk about both. So let's talk about what does it mean to be prepared and when is the best time to buy a home. And then we'll switch over to some questions about investing and becoming an investor. So for families who are looking for a home, when is the best time to buy? When do we see fluctuations in the market that might create the best
ideal
situations? Exactly. Create the ideal situations for someone to buy a home.
Know that there's a such thing. I think that you buy a home when you need a home. And, I think that markets are markets, right? That's not something that we have any control over, but we do have needs. And, I always try to speak real estate from a very realistic point of view. And the best time to buy is when you are able to, like, I work in two different realms. And I think that there are people who are like, okay, we need somewhere to live. And it's like, are we going to get approved or no? Like, no one's assessing, oh, what's the interest rate? Like, most people are not. I mean, it's a thing because the money costs more to borrow. But at the same time, does that change the fact that you need somewhere for your family to live? And, the other thing that we're faced with that we hadn't talked about today is rental prices. And the fact that they are where they are and they are increasing by the day. And, at some point people have to say, well, if I'm going to pay this much in rent, it makes sense to buy. But what buying looks like for people is what gets them caught up. Because again, that $300, sorry, not $300, but $300,000 house is not what it used to be. And I think that's very disappointing, even though that's the budget you have. Like, you have to be realistic with what you can do and when you can do it. But, again, we can't control the market, but that does not control what we need to do when we need to do it. And I think that Atlanta is in that national trends don't typically affect us because we live in a place that is in such high demand. Like, just think about how many people influx and come to this city. Like, you all entertain your cousins and show them such a good time that they go home and make a plan to move to Atlanta. So we never really have a shortage of demand, which, could be different in another area. Like, I'm from Augusta, Georgia. I don't know that people are flocking, to Augusta the same way that they're flocking to Atlanta. So when we talk about demand and supply, we're under supply because we have such high demand, and nobody really cares about, COVID. I will say, let me go to COVID. COVID was a very big turning point for us because all of your New Yorkers, your Californians, and, your Northern people when we were forced to be at home, they started assessing their situations, and they were like, hey, when you get out of the rhythm of running to work and running home and only being home 2 hours a day, and you're now here for 8 hours or 10 hours, and you're looking around and you're like, I hate this place. Then you get on Zillow and see Atlanta, and you're like, wait, I could buy this for $400,000 and have an acre of land and have a basement and have hardwood floors. I'll pay cash. Like, give them 450, give them 500, because their houses, they're 800,000. They already in the millions, right? So many people started making transitions to Atlanta during that time, and then the work from home thing became super popular. That had a lot to do with how our pricing changed because we had some people who really valued what we had to offer versus people who were just, taking for granted that pricing would always be what it was. Right. So several different factors have rolled in, but again, that has not digressed. Like, we haven't seen a break from that since that time. So we just have to adjust, and again, at some point, the market will definitely change. To what and when, we don't know. But that will not change the fact that we do have to house our families and we do have to start building wealth. And what I want people to really focus in on is not having like this grandiose picture in their minds of what a house that I buy should be. Everybody's starting point is going to be different. And I think you asked the question, like, where do you start? Like, how do you go about buying a house? First step in that is assessing where you are. Like, what can we afford? What is my credit score? What is your credit score? You should be able to ask me that question. You should be able to answer that question and be monitoring every 30 days, especially with the accessibility. It's something that you need to keep an eye on. For sure. 30, 60, 90 days at least, no more than 90 days, keeping eyes on those numbers. Because we have so many instances of fraud. Like, I got off the phone today with somebody who, somebody's been using the card, and somebody's been, people will buy things in your name. Now we have the need for deed protection, like the way we, lock our credit. We have to lock our deeds because people have been stealing deeds and putting houses in their name. So there are so many things going on. There are so many advantages of living in a digital age, but there are so many disadvantages as well. So I think that it is important that we monitor. Credit is so important. Like, it is something that I think people need to super protect, and not from just a scam or fraud perspective, but it is something that we need to just take really good care of. We've been taught when we were growing up, like, oh, cash is king. How many places have you been in the last 30 days that say, oh, we don't take cash? Several. I keep hearing it, and it's becoming more and more popular that people are not even accepting cash. Just imagine that. So things and times are changing, and we have to evolve with them. Knowing where you are, knowing where you stand, and then I would say second, setting a goal. So where is it that you're trying to go? And then measuring the distance between where you are and where that goal is so that you can set realistic plans in place to make that gap close. For sure. Yep. And then third step, save, which means sacrifice.
Yeah.
Which means stay out of these Atlanta streets that are now like what, $200 minimum to leave the house by the time you pay for parking. Like, and I'm not even counting y'all's babysitters y'all gotta get. No.
Right now.
But you out of that phase. Right. But by the time you pay for parking, what did I have to do the other night? One drink, I paid $32
No way.
for one drink. And when I tell you, the girl was like, do you want to keep the tab open? And I was like, girl, if you should have closed that 5 minutes. Hopefully this is the last drink I have to buy myself. Like, why am I even buying my own drink? But it was expensive. Yeah. I mean, to just even sacrifice like not going out one of those days of the month, and putting that aside, savings has to be a part of the goal setting, realistically down payments. If the cost is up, right? If the price of the house is up, right? And the interest rate is up, guess what else is up?
The down payment.
So it just makes sense. So that would be kind of my roadmap, just in a lay in general term of where to get started.
Yeah, that's super helpful. And one of the things that I like to say is short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit. Those sacrifices to save and do what you have to do to make those adjustments to your credit score, it's worth it in the long run.
And I think too that we lose sight of how big the small things are, how big it is. I did an assessment of my spending the other day. I was like, wait, I'm spending how much a month on this and how much a month? Like, girl, I made some big changes, and
Small things add up.
Small things add up. So the other day, I wasn't even looking for a check. I'm like, oh, I got paid. You know what I mean? Like, that's where we need to be. And another thing that I keep hearing whispers of is we're heading into a recession. Like, I know that for many, it feels like we're already there. But again, it's a slow creep. Like how we're saying, the small things add up. Like, just think about when eggs started costing $5 instead of $2, and how really can't go in the grocery store today for less than $100, regardless of what you're buying, meal or no.
I think I spent $40 and maybe things. Okay.
So, and everything is more expensive.
Yeah.
Car washes are more expensive. Groceries are more, and not even luxuries, but let's just talk about necessities. So, we just have to be mindful and putting our monies in things that are growing rather than deducting from us. So that car buying, even cars now, it used to be so rare to see $100,000 car. Now you almost, Corolla's costing $100,000. Have to get the spoil on the back.
Exactly. Are there any programs? So if you are a first-time home buyer or within a certain income,
Plenty, yeah.
what programs are out there?
So there are several programs. A lot of them are specific to areas. So where they're trying to spur growth. Invest Atlanta, excuse me. I was going to say City of Atlanta, but Invest Atlanta. Also, Atlanta Housing Authority has some excellent down payment programs, but down payment assistance programs that are housed if you're willing and able to move into this actual city of Atlanta. And a lot of that was put in place to relocate the tax base back into the city.
Okay.
So some of those grants are up to $25,000. They do have income restrictions, but definitely worth looking into. Other products, VA loans, which I push really heavily. Do want to make sure that our military personnel are taking advantage of the benefits that they get. No credit checks, zero down payment. Exactly. Credit is not a factor, and zero down payment. Chenoa, like, it's several different programs. What I would love for people to do who need to borrow money is shop mortgage lenders like they shop Zillow for houses.
Okay.
So it is very imperative to get the right lender on your team, someone who's knowledgeable, someone who can work around unique situations if you have one. And then they offer different products. So some lenders actually offer down payment assistance programs. Now, I will say that down payment assistance does come with its own, some of them are expensive, but if you need $30,000, you may be paying a higher rate for the money. But okay, if I have to pay a point higher, is it worth it to me to get the $30,000? So just want to point that out. But several different options there. I'll send you to your listeners. Do you have somewhere for them to go to
Yes,
get this
I
one?
have some
Yeah.
notes.
So
Yeah.
I'll add it to your notes. I'll send you a couple of things over for people to go through.
Okay. I think everybody would appreciate that. Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about investing. For someone who might be interested in investing, what is your advice to get started?
My biggest advice about investing is to like mentorship when it comes to investing because like I was saying earlier, like we live in this digital age, like things seem to move fast, especially if you're an HGTV fan like myself. You watch these shows and we get these ideas, and the real life version of what happens is very different from the 30-minute and hour segments that we watch on TV shows about real estate. So, one of the biggest things that I always advise people who are interested in getting into investing in real estate is to buddy up with someone who is actually doing it and someone that you can prove has doors, has some work behind them. You can look up these and you see that they're in their name, like you see that they're doing this work. I have some favorites. I can add those to the notes as well. I won't call any names out loud because unless they're going to send us some sponsorship money to the
Thank you.
and not programs. Like, there's so many people out here. Again, I'm gonna go back to the scammers, people who are just, making commercials versus the people who are actually doing the work. One other essential part of investing is having a great team around you because one of the big things with investing is you're more than likely going to have to do some construction work. And you need a team that's capable, that's dependable, because contractors are unfortunately a trade where there's not a lot of trust, especially when you're working with someone who doesn't know what they're doing. They get taken advantage of really quickly
For sure.
when it comes to timelines and budgets. So I think that mentorship in investment is really imperative.
It's a good idea. I haven't never heard anybody suggest that.
Really?
A lot of like Instagram posts and articles about becoming an investor. You don't need any money, or you can get an LLC and get your house in the LLC's name. Propaganda, but you don't know because that's all that is in front of us.
Absolutely.
So no one's talking about mentorship. They're talking about how you can do the quick and easy. And you pay me $500 to take my course, and I'll show you how. And I don't know what happens after. I never did. I never invested in that program.
Right.
Yeah. So the information is out there.
In general, in life, nothing, it's very rare that it's quick and easy. And so, what I would say for sure is do your research. It is not overnight anything. And I would say that to people too who are looking to get into this business as real estate professionals.
Right.
Obtaining your license is one thing, but actually doing the work and closing deals and guiding people through transactions is a big fiduciary responsibility. And so, same thing when you are opening a business, for instance, not just investing in real estate, but investing in anything, do your due diligence, like follow up, verify things, and not just take people's word. What you also see is lots of people saying, "Hey, I got taken," or "These people took my money," right? And you hear these horror stories. So they happen in real life because people do take advantage of the lack of knowledge, and people are so enthused and anxious to get into something that they don't take the time to learn the business. Like I would never open a restaurant without first working in a restaurant. Like, and I'm talking about starting at washing dishes, right? Because you need to learn the business so you understand your gaps. You understand, when people are not performing and why, things are not going the way that you want because you got to understand the nuts and bolts of something before you jump into it. So that would be my advice for sure.
And that's probably in line with what a couple of successful fast food restaurants do. Before you can become a franchise owner, you have to work every job in that restaurant.
That's
The only way you can be successful. Sure that the franchisees, the franchisor, the restaurants that don't require
right.
likely have a higher failure rate.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Do you have any success stories that you can share? And that's
Yeah, typically investments, I typically refer out, honestly, because I don't have the time to do the actual work of digging down on what is needed to prepare somebody to make a very sound investment. Like I will I do land purchases and things of that nature for people to build buildings. That is and again, because of what I'm saying, I take it so seriously, like the level of due diligence and just kind of checking the crossing the T's and dotting the I's on that, people who are trying to build portfolios. I do work with a lot of nonprofits. I probably shouldn't say that, but investing is it's kind of a niche thing. And some people do it and then they get licensed and they get really good at it. And then they bring other people along and form groups and, start investing together, which I think is an excellent idea. But I love working with families who are like first time buyers. Necessarily. I do love the first time buyers, but I really love just working with buyers and helping people find that place that they make home. Yeah. Like that's my big thing. And like I said, I'm a fifth generation owner. So ownership is super important to my family. It's always something that's been instilled in me. It is something that I preach and teach. I love for people to just be realistic about their starting point. Yeah. And being and building, like, and thinking of it, if they're not where they want to be and they're not buying a quote unquote dream house, that they buy a house and that be a starting point that allows them to build to the second house. You know what I mean? The equity that you make staying in that first house the first 3 or 5 years pays for what you need to get into the second house. And I don't think that people understand and grasp that concept. So I try to teach that as much as possible and go from there. So that's my happy place, my real estate happy place.
Tell us how we can get in contact with you.
So I am the owner suite on all platforms: Instagram, Facebook. What else are we using right now? TikTok. I'm on there, but I do not participate as much as I probably should. And my website is theownersuite.com, so I'm super easy to find. Most people will probably have a hard time with Arneé, but I'm Arnee, last name Harrison. So you can Google me and you will find all of my resources and reputation and no mugshots, no recent ones anyway. Cool, I gotta send my resources over, keep my word.
Make sure that we get it posted.
Yes, please do. Thank you so much for the invitation, Monée, and good luck in the future with your podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. All right. Until next time, friends, be well and be balanced.